Hello amigos and welcome to a book review. The book of the hour today is The Inheritance Games. So I'm going to start saying I did enjoy this book. I wouldn't say it was one of my favourites that I've read recently, but it was a very good book. And in general, I would recommend it. Out of 5 stars, I would say maybe a 3.5. Yeah. I'm going to start with what I enjoyed about this book, because there were a lot of things to enjoy. I think one of the first things that stood out to me was the characters. There is very good characterization in this book. All the characters are very likable, but they also have flaws. And I think the characters in a way that make them very kind of relatable, like you can sympathize with them a lot. And they have kind of layers where even if at first they don't seem to be the best person, but then they can develop, or the opposite way. And also I think they feel like kind of cartoonish in a way. They're very exaggerated characters. It's kind of endearing in a way that you're rooting for the characters and you want them to be happy and you do like them as characters. I would say I actually think the side characters had a lot more development and like better personalities than the main characters. Like the main characters, like the main three, I would say are probably Avery, Jameson, and Grayson. And I think in later books they do become more likable, but in general, I think the side characters are much more likable and much more interesting. And not that the main characters aren't interesting, they are, but I mean, I would have preferred there to be a bit more focus on some of the other characters. In the main series, it makes sense. Obviously, there's going to be focus on Avery as the main character. We're seeing it from her perspective. But in some of the other books, The Brothers Hawthorne, The Games Untold, when we're getting other characters' perspectives and we're seeing other people's stories, I would have liked to have a bit more expansion on characters like Nash or Xandar or Libby, Max, like other side characters who I think personally were more intriguing to me. But again, that could just be because I didn't get too much of their perspective that makes me more intrigued to them. But I think I did prefer the side characters over the main characters a little bit. But the main characters are also very enjoyable. I think Jameson and Avery are good characters, and I do like them, but in terms of relatability, I wouldn't say Avery is one of my favourite main characters. I think she's definitely a good character and I did enjoy her, but I wouldn't say it's comparable to other main characters. I'll say if I'm thinking of like one of my favourite characters, she's not going to immediately come to my mind. I don't think she would come to my mind at all. She is a very good character and she has a lot of complexities, and she's a very smart character, and it's not like she's not the kind of character that has to be dumbed down in order to progress the plot or to stop the book from being over too quickly, which is another thing that I do like, which I'm going to get onto. But I think maybe she seems a little bit boring in some ways. I would say her as a character, she doesn't seem to have too much of her own personality. She seems more as just like, you can tell that she's a device in the story to keep it going rather than a character. And oh my god, that fly is so big. Sorry. Yeah, but it's not that she's a bad character. She's just not as interesting as other main characters. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because the story is still very good even with that. And it's not so obvious. I think I see it more because I was thinking about it a lot. But if you're just reading it for enjoyment and you're not overthinking it too much, it's very easy to like her as a character, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I really loved the characters in this book. The next thing was the plot was, honestly, it was very, very well thought out. It was very well written and well structured. And well, obviously it's a mystery, so there was some ambiguity, but it didn't feel confused unless that was, the purpose of it. And I'm not explaining well. So obviously in a mystery the point of it is that you're not supposed to know everything, but it didn't, the information and the plot wasn't presented in a way that made it hard for me to understand. I felt like I was always following along and I always knew what was going on, or at least I had a grasp of what could be going on. And it was also structured in a good way where you can kind of start to think like the characters and you can try and solve the mystery on your own. And in some ways, it was a little bit outlandish and kind of cartoonish in a way and very exaggerated, and it's not realistic at all, obviously. But I think that adds to, like, it's just fun, it's very enjoyable. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's a great literary work, but it was very, very enjoyable and very fun to read. And the plot was very interesting, and there were so many different branches, but it didn't feel muddled or confused. It felt like everything fit into each other in a logical way, is what I'm trying to say. And also, as you're reading, you can just tell the development, everything. As you progress through the series, you can tell how well planned and how well thought out it was. And it's very engaging. I would say that. Like, the book was very engaging. I was, at first, as soon as I read it, I wanted to read more. I think I read the first book about 2 weeks before I was able to get the rest of the series. And I was so excited because it was very hooking, I suppose. I'm trying to think of a better adjective. But yeah, it hooked me. One thing I will mention though is I think the first and the second book were very good and I really enjoyed them. But by the time we got to the third book, which is the last installment in the main series, it did start to slow down a bit and I was getting a bit bored and I wasn't as interested in the plot of the third book. I mean, obviously, the way it was planned out, after reading the rest of the series that I had, I could tell that it wasn't, like, it was planned. It was meant to be like that. But at first, it seemed like the third book was really unnecessary and that it was kind of just there to make more money, not really to progress the story. And I'm not saying that's the case because it's clear that that was not the case. But it just felt a bit underwhelming compared to the other two books. And I will say I found it to be a bit anticlimactic. But I'm not saying that it wasn't a enjoyable series. It was, but I think it slowed down towards the end. And it was in such a way that I'm not very tempted to read the sequel series. Because there is a sequel series that I have not read yet. I think it's still being released, so it's not finished yet. But I don't find myself, itching or excited to read it. Like, the last book I read, the Folk of the Air series, there's a sequel series or there's some novellas, and I really want to read them. But with this series, I don't find myself, like, excited about it in that kind of way, where, I'm satisfied just stopping here with the books I've had, because I'm not very interested anymore, just because I think the progression of the third book slowed it down a bit. But the first two books were very good. I think one thing that I really did notice is that this was when I read the later two books. I'm not sure why, but I feel like the female characters got first person perspectives, but all the male characters didn't. They had third person perspectives, which was a bit odd, but that's okay, I suppose. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much. But I would have liked to have a bit more insight into some of the boys' brains, like specifically Xander's. I would love to have read a first person perspective from Xander, but maybe the author just likes writing female perspectives more. I'm not sure. But speaking of the last two books, Brothers Hawthorne and Games Untold, you do not have to read them in order to read the main series, but I would recommend them because I would say, out of everything in this series, as intriguing as the plot was and as well written as it was, I would say that the main thing that stands out to me about the series is the characters. And I think those two books, they really expand on the characters more. So I would say that those two are worth reading if you've read the series. And I would say it is a series worth reading. I think in general, the writing style was a little bit interesting. And I mean, it was nothing outstanding, but it wasn't terrible. and the plot was very good. And I'm trying to use adjectives that don't give too much away about the book, because book reviews are not supposed to do that. But the plot was engaging, and the characters were definitely very interesting and very lovable. And I would recommend the series if you like mystery. I think it's a pretty good mystery. Uh, it's less mysterious and more like fun and puzzle solving, and it's lower stakes, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. But it's fun and it's very enjoyable, and I would recommend it, but it might not be my first choice to recommend. Like, I would say it is an enjoyable read and it is a fun read, but I wouldn't say that you have to read it and it's an amazing book and that you'd be changed if you read it. And I mean, people might not agree. This is just my opinion. But if I were to recommend it, it wouldn't be like a dire situation. I wouldn't say, "Oh my god, this is an amazing book. You have to read it." It's more like it's a fun, enjoyable read, and I think if you read it, you would like it. But I would say this: if you do read the first three books, the main trilogy part, I would say do read Brothers Hawthorne and Games Untold, because if you've already read the series, I think those two books are very good, and they're much more fun as well, and they expand more on the characters. And I would say, yeah, if you've read the first series, read them because they're very fun. And I mean, we all love the characters. I can't think of, unless you didn't like the book as a whole. If you've read the book, I can't imagine that you wouldn't love the characters. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think I've already said this, but in total, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And yeah, if you want to read it, but you're not missing out if you don't. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. I know I was supposed to do this last week, but I had exams and I was busy, and that was my bad. I should have made more time, but I had to revise, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But I've done it now. Hopefully that's enough. And anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully this helped you decide, and hopefully I didn't offend anyone. Because I did think it was good. I just didn't think it was my favourite. I didn't think it standed out a lot, but I did enjoy it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this, and you can like the video if you want, and you can even subscribe if you want, but not that I care because I'm really chill. Anyway, thank you so much. Maybe I'll see you again some other time. Thank you, bye.